Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mythic Mel on Awakening Airwaves. I am your host, Melinda, Mythic Mel herself, and in this podcast, I invite the beautiful muses to sing for us once more of Greek myth. Hello, welcome to Mythic Mel, the podcast where mythological imagination and ancient archetype meets personal story, everyday energy work, and spiritual growth. I am your host, Melinda, and I'm very happy to be talking with you today about one of my favorite Greek goddesses, the goddess Athena. She is not just some abstract concept or a cool amulet to wear on your neck, although I love my Athena jewelry. Her energy is very real, and her gifts to us are in many ways the most important gifts of all the gods of Mount Olympus. She's here right now with us, the wise strategist of my mind, of your mind, helping us process information and perceive with clarity and balance. I'll be looking at ways that Athena operates in your life, possibly in ways that you haven't considered. You've probably heard of the goddess Athena, the goddess of wisdom, strategic warfare, and weaving, among other things. And you may even know about her owl and some of her stories and her beautiful temple. But we'll be going even further today into her role as alchemist and sage, and into how and where she lives in you and your body. One of the things that we'll talk about today is about how Athena's very unusual birth story highlights the incredible technology of our minds. Her origin story shows that it is our design to be able to use thought and direction of mind to understand and access both feminine and masculine energies to balance and harmonize the yin-yang principle within us all. Yes, Athena does that. I'll take you on a tour of her temple and show how her spirit is still very much alive in the geography of Athens and her people. You'll learn how and why Athena became the patron goddess of the city instead of the god of the sea, Poseidon. And the hint is, she is a better gift giver. I'll share with you how Athena relates to the devotional purity and the discerning aspects of the astrological sign of Virgo. Also, question, how does Athena express the alchemical element of air and the tarot suit of swords? You'll find out. I'm going to be weaving in personal story, as always, of the goddess and how she called me directly to her lap from halfway across the world and whispered real life strategies to help me find my way in times of deep sadness. She has been my guide and mentor since childhood, and where I'm sitting right now in this wood-paneled sanctuary is a direct result of her calling. I'll post pictures about that on my YouTube and Instagram if you should care to look. But finally, at the end of all of this sharing, I will provide practical journal exercise that the goddess inspired, as well as an Athena tarot spread I created. And you can try this out when challenge arises and you need a higher perspective. So let's get in to her home. As a goddess of the Acropolis, akro means high, like elevation-wise, and polis means city from Greek. This is the limestone rock outcropping in Athens upon which her temple, the Parthenon, sits. So Athena is very connected to the city and dedicated to protecting her citizens. Her temple, gorgeous, is a literal magnet for the eyes. All eyes are drawn to that site when you're in that city. And it reminds everybody to look up. There's always a higher vantage point from which to see your problems and see past difficult moments. So the geographical placement of the temple is part of Athena energy. And when you start at the bottom of her temple and the Acropolis, and you make the spiral pilgrimage, first from the circular road that goes all around the Acropolis, and it curves up and up and up, and you climb steep marble stairs higher and higher until you finally reach her power center. And then you get to see this huge, sprawling vista of this busy city full of beautiful souls cooking avgolemano soup and eating spanakopita and saying kalimera and dancing and drinking gretsina and mythos beer and making love below. All of this is just bustling down below, but you're up on that calm altitude of her temple, seeing it from above, climbing up those last stairs to come to her temple, to be next to her kore, the maidens. You've entered another frequency. So you take a pause to rest and regroup. You're finally there. You're near the center of her energy, and you feel spiritually lifted. You feel the sacredness of the site and the literal elevation of the place. But at the same time, you feel this groundedness, the sturdiness of the rock, the magnetism of the earth crystals that you're standing on. And depending on the day, you might also feel buffeted by the strong winds that blow from the Aegean Sea and rush up over the Acropolis and race through the columns and ripple through your clothing, cleansing and clearing your energy field. So when I think of Athena, all of that comes to me. And it's a very beautiful, lifted frequency. So in the summertime, however, the Athenian sun is so strong and it bakes you, if you're up there, into the scene, and you're surrounded by masses of fellow pilgrims who surround and weave around you and remind you of how small your mortal problems actually are in the scheme of the grand earth and all of its inhabitants and the enormous temple project that is millennia old. So when I was a young girl, making this short walk home from the tourist tavernas where my mom belly danced in the dark, right below Athena's temple, I would sense the goddess watching sort of up to my right, and her Sirius owl on her shoulder with its keen nighttime vision, making sure that I knew of any dangers lurking in the dark. There never were any dangers. It's a very safe city. But I did still feel her strong presence and her protective gaze that followed me all the way to my safe arrival at our building's big green door. I didn't need to see her to know she was there. Presiding over the Parthenon, which literally means a room for virgins, Parthena, and she herself is known as the Virgin Goddess. Athena is above the fray, literally. She pays no mind to unhealthy attachments, silly family squabbles, or love affairs that confuse thought and dissipate precious energies. She has no time for that. The goddess Athena deliberately avoided the marriage bed to focus on the development of her intellect without interference. She is able to focus 100% on whatever task she decides to accomplish, and she sees it through. Doesn't that sound good? She's not asking us to be literal virgins. We're talking about metaphorical wholeness unto oneself, about independent spirits and minds. Athena exists in a state of purity unto herself. I think about the Delphic maxim, know thyself, when I think of her, and the Reiki precept, be true to your way and your being. So the goddess Athena says, go to the aspect of your mind that is the Parthenon. We all have access to that temple. It's the room in our own consciousness that is uncluttered by the fears, doubts, ideas, and opinions of others. And there you ask the question, what do you really think? Not what does your mother or your family or your father or your sister, your brother, your cousins, or your partner think, but you. What do you think? Whether we're in a relationship or not, we can summon this clear, high vibration frequency of the Parthenon with its strong, clarifying breezes to cleanse and clear our minds to think for ourselves. And I'll spiral back to this concept later. Athena is the goddess who urges you to think about continuing your education, to always be open to learning new things, be it through books or online courses or YouTube tutorials or adult extension schools. She encourages new experiences in new places to get you out of familiar ruts and even explore ways of being and thinking that are different from your family of origin, especially if those ideas keep you stuck in unhealthy thought and communication patterns. What does Athena love? She loves directing awareness to goals, to common sense focus, to what we're creating. She gets us out of ruts, and she inspires practical action. She even calls us to a very high frequency of emotional regulation. When I used to travel alone on international flights from Athens, Greece to the United States, back and forth between parents every 6 months, I was always leaving either my mom or my dad, both of whom I loved dearly, and spending half-year chunks in either place since the age of 7. On one of those flights when I was very young, Athena visited my mind and telepathically gave me strategies to cope, to self-regulate, to calm my nerves. I was crying, and a voice was in my head that said, "You'll be okay. In 6 months' time, we'll meet again here on this plane, going the other direction. Dry your tears, live each day, do your best, and know this too shall pass." Because one of my gifts is to translate energy somatically into movement or shape, I also love to ask this kind of question. What might Athena energy feel like in your body? And I think that in your body, Athena energy feels like when you stand up with really great posture and mindful alignment, and you let your internal sun shine, and the Athena body takes a nice, deep, long breath in and exhale out. And she's in that moment when you interrupt going into a deep self-pity swim and you alchemize the situation, reorient your mind to a new thought or an affirmation. So she's there when you say with compassion to yourself, "I know this will pass. I apply the wisdom of my heart intelligence, and I see many sides of the situation. All is well. All shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well." Athena can also shapeshift into any form that will best deliver actionable counsel to a confused human in need, as when she takes the form of Mentes at the beginning of the Odyssey, the epic poem by Homer. So she chooses the form of a person she knows will be welcomed and respected by young Telemachus, the son of Odysseus, and whose words Telemachus will heed and not ignore. This is interesting because she could have chosen any form to communicate with this young man, but she knew he would listen most intently to an older male stranger from somewhere else and not have it come from his mother, Penelope, for example. And that is pretty thoughtful and strategic of her. We don't always accept counsel from those close to us. She knows that how we present information and advice matters as much as the wisdom itself. I think we've all had examples of that in our lives where, you want to give advice, but the person just isn't going to take it from us. It's better if it comes from someone else. So that's Athena wisdom. So it's finally time to dive into her incredible birth story. She was not born the usual way. She was like a perfect developed thought, or like a download from the universe that came in perfect chapters. And this goddess just sprang out of her father's head, Zeus's head, fully formed, with her spear, with her shield, with her helmet, ready for action. She did have a mother of sorts, Metis, who was the goddess of wisdom in a different way, but she never was mothered by anybody. And this is a wild story, but Zeus had married Metis when she was out of his body, and he impregnated her. But there was a prophecy that the child that Metis bore would be delivered only to overthrow him, just as he had overthrown his father and taken power over the gods. So Zeus didn't want this to happen, so he decided to avoid the problem by swallowing his wife whole. So he literally swallowed the problem. But when does that strategy of denial ever really work? The things you try to repress will ultimately always be back to bite you in the butt. So here is Zeus, and after 9 months, he develops this splitting headache, and he's begging to be bashed in the head with an axe to get some relief. And the story goes that Hephaestus or Prometheus, depending on who you ask, whacked him in the head, and out popped the goddess Athena, shining, resplendent. And instead of overthrowing her father-mother figure, she laid down her weapons and joined him as co-strategist, ruling over gods and mortals. She also was the only one among gods allowed to wield Zeus's lightning bolt. We can kind of see that bolt as a current, like a charge, energy of manifestation that moves through you in the flashes and downloads you get from heaven. That's Athena energy as well. So there's a lot of interesting gender-related things to consider in this part of her story. First of all, in consuming Metis, the feminine aspect of intelligence and intuition, this is now a literal part of Zeus. So he's become this blended mother-father figure with this harmonized yin-yang. So he symbolizes both the logical mind, which is typically a yang or a masculine described attribute, and then he's got the intuitive mind, considered a yin receptive or feminine aspect of intelligence. And so it is maybe why when Athena was born, she didn't destroy Zeus, but instead she chose cooperation. That's just speculation on my part, but I'm going with it. So when Athena is born, she is fully mature. She never had to be a baby and grow up. She's birthed direct from his head, and she's able to immediately separate into her own separate individual self from family and declare her freedom of mind. She doesn't always agree with Zeus, but they usually can reason things out and reach accord on various matters. Athena comes out of Mother Father Zeus as a kind of third sex. One of her epithets is tritogenia, or meaning third way or third birth. It's a little bit obscure why this is with what this means, but it sort of hints at this gender neutral third way. She's a goddess, not a god, but she was not born of a biological female. She never bears children. And she chooses independence from either sex. In fact, she's totally uninterested in sex. It's not her concern. She makes all decisions based on the strength of her own reasoning. She doesn't have to compromise or water down her thinking to suit or placate anyone else. Further, Athena comes down from Mount Olympus regularly to interact with mortals, and she shapeshifts into both female and male form to dispense ideas and give advice. So I just find that interesting, all the sort of the balanced gender stuff that comes from Zeus having swallowed the mother and kind of unifying the analytical and intuitive mind. And then out comes Athena with that balance. But let's talk about her now in terms of chakras. Athena is, as I said, very independent. She's more associated with the father's head than the mother's womb. So she doesn't really connect to the second chakra energies of like sensual passion, gut instinct, body pleasure, or emotionality. She resides like the temple that she lives in the highest point of the body, in the 6th and 7th chakras. These are the realms of right view, of universal wisdom, higher intelligence. And there she strategically weaves information and truth. Her owl eyes see, and she applies these hermetic laws to her actions when she intercedes on behalf of humanity. This is probably why she's often portrayed with a tall helmet on. She's always visualizing the big picture playing field. She's cool. She's considering which ways to win. And it's not that she's never pissed. She is, and she did turn a mortal into a spider, for example, for good reason. But generally, her actions are justified in some bigger picture, intelligent way. When I think about Athena in terms of alchemy and the elements, I see her as representing the element of air and also the tarot suit of swords that are associated with air and the mental plane with ideas, how you think, how you communicate. I see Athena like the Queen of Swords, like a master of capital T truth and the highest perspective. And as I've been saying, she's concerned with how you direct and manage your mind. Like the Queen of Swords, she's very serious about communication and exchange. She's ready to listen and dispense advice to anyone asking, but don't expect her to sugarcoat it. Single thing. She will give you the straight up truth. And so you would be wise not to waste time, and you should do exactly what she says. Anyway, as an elemental air goddess, Athena also knows literally which way the wind blows, and she taught humans how to build sailing ships with special textiles, the sails that harness wind. She understands the different textures of air, like of consciousness. She's tuned in to how to pause and breathe, ground, create spaciousness before taking what could be rash action. So she's not just a martial goddess because she's a goddess of war, but she's like a martial artist where she's playing with, the forces and going with harnessing, what is the wind. With Athena mind, you win any battle, not with unruly warfare like her hot-tempered half-brother, god of war, Ares, but with fair rules of engagement. And in terms of the 4 directions, air is often associated with the east, the land of the rising sun, where a new day and the rising sun that's this full of fresh potential and new thought are born. And it's very interesting that the ancients chose the east pediment of the Parthenon to depict her birth in the statuary and in the friezes. And morning time is a good time to connect with Athena energy, because that's when you sift through the dreams the owls have brought you in the night. You interpret those dreams, you sit with the symbols, you do your breath work. You want to promote equanimity in your nervous system to make strategic plans for a successful day. That is very Athena time. So back to kind of Virgo qualities, Athena's alchemical air, her thought, is very grounded. It's very practical. Like Virgos, she teaches us to use our air, our minds, to manage our earth, our bodies, for the benefit of our health and success in the material realm. This is one of my favorite stories too about her in terms of health. She is the goddess who gives Asclepius, who is the god of healing, who has the caduceus. She gives him the medicines from Medusa's blood. So the Medusa head is on Athena's shield, and she has a lot of associations with the Gorgon Medusa. So from one side of Medusa, she took a vial of blood that can heal and bring people back to life. From the other side, she took a vial of blood that could poison and kill. And she gave those to Asclepius. And he taps into Athena wisdom when he determines what blend of medicine to use. Does he choose to bring something back to life, or does he need to allow something to die away for something new to be born? So even in that process is Athena wisdom. All right, now let's have some fun with more astrological speculation. Okay, so I've sort of proclaimed, even though we have no idea when she was born from Zeus's head, what month, that she's like a Virgo. So like many Virgos, she wants to be of practical service. But if I had to guess, I would say Athena's moon would be in Aquarius, because this is a humanitarian, fixed air sign, very into innovation. Athena is an inventor. And they also really value their intellectual freedom. They have strong minds and opinions and are, I'm generalizing, but they are perceived to be sort of detached from feelings or from big shows of emotion. Like Athena, Aquarians tend to be spectacular originals. And I would say her Mercury would be, the Mercury rules communication. It could potentially be Capricorn because she likes to share around ideas about ambition, and she's practical and concrete, and she helps the goat climb to the tippy top of the mountain. She enjoys teaching us through clear step-by-step plans how to build a path to greatness and victory. She is not interested in useless self-doubt and negative self-talk. None of that for her. So keeping with this kind of speculative theme in the magician realm, I feel like Athena is not air of air. She is not totally in the air zone. She's portrayed as having, that grounded quality. She doesn't have mystical visions. She's not racing into the wind without a plan. She has a method, like the woman portrayed in the energetic alchemist oracle deck from the Suit of Air. So there she is, her fingers typing up a syllabus of success as she receives these lightning bolt downloads into her incredible mind. And so with this incredible mind of Athena's, she is, as I said, an inventor. She taught humans how to yoke oxen and build bridles for taming wild horses. And she invented the chariot and the plow and the rake to cultivate earth. So you are bringing Athena energy through when you invent new devices that improve your lives. And you're bringing Athena energy in when you make a good plan, when you learn to shift your communication style to talk about what you know in a way that's going to bring you recognition and reward for a good job. She's there when you mentor others on different ways to think about their problems. She's there when you encourage others to make medicine of their gifts and to serve not just themselves by shining their full bright light as individuals, but also serve the polis, the city. So I'm hoping that you've started to connect with Athena energy and how she works in your life. You know, she's not running around threatening people with her spear or throwing it haphazardly. Every step she takes is grounded in the wisdom of practice, and sometimes she's shown resting her head on top of her spear, patiently listening for wisdom, of which battles to engage in and which to ignore. Choosing your battles wisely is a very Goddess of Athena concept. Okay, now let's talk about her eyes. Her eyes are famously gray. She's called the gray-eyed goddess in all of these poems again and again. And for those of you into tarot, this obviously makes me think of the blending of the opposites of black and white that come together to make gray. And she often sees the middle way. She perceives things as they are with a mostly neutral eye. Sometimes she picks favorites, but only because they deserve it. And they've made her very devotional offerings. But for the most part, she takes a long view, and she understands timing, and she's a champion of fairness and just causes. The long story short, Athena wants us all to just grow up and get our act together. She wants us to make something of our lives. And in the opening scene of the Odyssey, she tells this very depressed young man, Telemachus, who's moping around waiting for his dad to return. He doesn't know if his dad is his dad even. He's doubting that. He doesn't know if he's alive or dead. And he's second-guessing everything in his life. He's full of self-doubt. And Athena comes in as mentees and is like, of course he's your father. Of course you have to do something about this. And she says to him, Telemachus, you must not cling to your boy head any longer. It's time you were a man. Literally, that's the words of the poem. She wants us to take full responsibility for our actions and choices, and grow up, acknowledge we have a role to play in living our best lives. She says, what is your part here? So she's asking Telemachus to take responsibility, even though he feels like a victim. All these suitors trying to steal his father's estate and marry his mother are around, and he's just moping around in a corner. And she's like, no, you can do something about this. You really can. And she tells him exactly what to do to get out of his own way, down to what time he should kick out the freeloading suitors from his mother's banquet hall, what time he should set sail in the morning to go seek information about his father's whereabouts. He's like, she tells him what he should say to the king of the neighboring island when he gets there. And any excuses, any insecurities he has around speaking up to the king, like he's like, I'm too young, I can't. She's like, buck up, grow into another version of yourself. It's time. That's Athena. So, shifting gears. It is said that there was a competition to see which god would win the patronage of this city. And in the end, it was between Poseidon and Athena. And the winner would be chosen based on the gift they offered to the city. So Poseidon took his trident and he struck it down dramatically on the earth. And in the place where he hit it, out sprung a saltwater spring to remind the citizens of how close they were to the very important nautical travelscape that was so crucial to their lives. But Athena stomped her foot on the ground, and then out of that spot grew an olive tree. And this gift was exquisite because it was beautiful. It provided shade. It provided nourishment of olives and olive oil all in one. So there it was, a practical, sustainable gift, sacred to the goddess and so useful to the people of Athens. So the people unanimously chose Athena to be their patron goddess. And there is still an olive grove around the Acropolis. When I got married on the hill facing her temple, I wore my Athena pendant, and I had an olive wreath that had been woven that morning by my chosen high priestess, Erin, the midwife, who I had invited to officiate the ceremony. I could go on and on about the personal connection to Athens and the goddess, but one day you will read it in my memoir. And in the meantime, I'm going to give you the tools that I promised, the journal prompt and the tarot spread. So here's the journal prompt. Dialogue with the goddess Athena. So first, you have to have a piece of paper or a notebook and pen. And you bring to mind a dilemma or a problem you're grappling with or facing. Now, imagine you're standing high atop the Acropolis, looking out over the vista of the bustling city all the way down to the seaport, where the ships are ready to take us to beautiful islands. So already this problem of yours seems a little less intense. You soften. Your viewfinder widens its scope. Now you take your piece of paper and begin the dialogue. Write your complaints and let Athena write you back, point by point. Express all your true feelings, but then let her disagree with you, challenge you, and propose other viewpoints. Let her lift your perspective. See things as if you were in the future looking back and giving advice to the current you. So keep this dialogue going until you've reached a sort of settlement within you. Let me know how that goes. And then this is the tarot spread. I'm calling Athena and her owl, a 3-card spread. Again, for guidance in a situation where you feel either out of your depth or trapped in repetitive thinking. So the first card is the Parthenon perspective. This is the card that inspires you to elevate your mind and see the big picture. So you're going to write down or speak out all the strands of truth around your situation. So tap in and trust your Athena mind, the mind that's thinking for itself. Acknowledge the truths that are present that are not connected to a need for approval or codependent feelings of pleasing others, but where you see the highest, biggest picture. So the second card is the owl. This is the card which helps you see the things that are hidden. You ask, what am I not seeing? This is like even the shadow within you is in that card. Ask yourself, what is hidden that I do not see about this situation? The third card is Athena's shield card. This is the practical card, summoning practical ideas related to like actionable steps you can take in your situation. Do you need to use a shield or a spear right now? Or can it wait? This card helps you make choices and decisions and make a plan for the next step. This card placement offers potential strategies to protect yourself or take action or have a conversation in certain ways or choose Athena postures and ways of thinking as you deal with others, that kind of thing. You can also look at the bottom of the deck for additional inspiration. But basically, in the end, the Athena and her owl spread is about seeing what is and directing your mind away from fears, doubts, worries to big picture strategies on how to succeed and stay in your Athena power, your Athena posture, and your Athena intelligence. Let me know in the comments if you tried it, how it goes. But as I said at the start, this podcast transmission is a small but very heartfelt offering back to the goddess Athena. It's my way of thanking her for her protection, her wisdom, and her guidance. Her innovative spirit, her practical courage, clarity, strategic mind, wisdom, technical intelligence help us vibrate our personal power at the highest possible level, and reminds us that we have access to neutral zones beyond polarities. In Hermetic terms, Athena reminds us that no matter what our pronoun, we carry all genders within us, both active and passive, both masculine and feminine principles, and both must be married within us and judiciously harnessed so we can make our choices and govern ourselves with balance and wisdom. Sometimes we must act. Sometimes it is wise to wait or receive. And in her way, Athena takes us beyond labels. So that's all for now. Thank you for joining me. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please like Mythic Mel and subscribe to Awakening Airwaves. Help us grow our Athena presence and reach. That way more people can benefit from these thoughtful and healing conversations. Please also comment below if any Goddess Athena information struck a chord in you today. This is not the Acropolis, but it is an internetopolis. And we sorely need our temples of free thinking in this space. All my best to you. I'm signing off for now. Thanks for joining me, and have a wonderful day or evening, wherever you are.